Who wants an honest review of Six the Musical? Obviously you do, because you're watching this. So we just saw Six the Musical at TPAC. It's here in town February 21st to 23rd. But as this is a newer musical, we thought, why not give you our honest review, which is not the same, might I add. So depending on how long this goes, you may hear some of that. So for those of you that just want the rundown, I'm going to tell you this. It is worth your money. It is very entertaining. It is about a 90-minute show with no intermission. It is a one-set production, 6 women with microphones, cool outfits, bringing history, fashion, and rewriting history with lots of nods to pop culture and high entertainment value. Go see it. Okay, that was under a minute. Now for the rest of it. Okay, so you asked me afterwards what I thought.
Yeah.
I said it was great.
Right.
Your response was, great? Okay, so we'll let you give what were your downside? Well, what were your upsides to it? I feel like you're going to steal my upsides. So.
I'm never steal your upsides. I would never steal your upsides. No, the upside is honestly it's a very necessary storyline, and what I love about it is that I'm a history buff. I love Sam knows I go down rabbit trails really easily on history and just like the history of things and the origin stories. I love that this is a story that you kind of heard of, Henry VIII and his multiple wives and the beheadings and all this stuff, and even to a certain extent the creation of the Church of England was because of this, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a huge deal, obviously. But to know there is a reason why even those things were created, and that these 6 women kind of represented that or were part of that narrative was important. I think it was important also to tell that story, but also tell their story, because they weren't just. I'm being honest.
You're sounding this was not your first. No, I wanted your first off the cuff review. Okay, no, we're gonna skip to why he didn't like it, because now he's being all introspective, and this is not.
I'm a creative. I'm an artist.
I'm nixing this. Okay, what did you not like about this? Let's go, because you're sounding very thoughtful right now, and that was not how
you
you
don't
were.
want to be a human.
I'm trying to give the car version of
the car version.
Yes,
I could change my mind, but I would say initially an hour ago, in the heat of it, I wasn't super impressed with the music. I didn't feel like there were a lot as a musician.
Right.
I didn't come out of it going, man, there's earworms. Like, man, the music is just, I can't. Like, I feel like the first time I heard Hamilton, like literally dun 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 dun. I mean, I literally didn't forget that. And I heard it on like Spotify or Apple Music. Then when I saw the play live, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I left that. It became really that whole soundtrack became really a big part of our life and marriage. Like the songs were just so infectious. I didn't feel like there were songs like that here. That's my first thing. Second thing.
Let me comment on that just to say that. So I agree. There were I didn't walk away singing anything. That being said, I thought all the songs were great. I thought they were witty. I thought they weren't all upbeat, but there was a lot of action. There was a lot of movement. There were a lot of pop culture references and song references. So like we heard nods to Beyonce,
For sure.
Kanye,
Shakira.
But they were like not like actually. It's like they pulled themes from
Spice Girls for sure.
Spice Girls, yeah. So
it was like, I tell you what I want, what you really want.
Yeah, so there were like beats of those. Now, what Ada was saying was that this is really cool. In the program, they literally show you the 6 real life queens that it was based off of, and then they show you like the queenspiration. So like each queen, you get a little bit of like who that modern day queen was, patterned after. So like a little bit of Shakira and Beyonce. There's a little bit of like Adele and Sia. So I thought that was really cool that this was in here. So before you moved on from the music, I wanted to say like I really like there was a lot of, from a music perspective, it reminded me from a music side of a musical, the vibe of the whole theater reminded me of going to see Mamma Mia. Like from the first like downbeat, people were cheering. So there were obviously people that had seen the musical.
It was celebratory.
It was very celebratory. It wasn't like that everyone knew the songs like a Mamma Mia, but like people knew when to cheer. People knew when to, like, people stood up and danced and clapped. Like, so it was that type of upbeat environment, even though we're talking about beheadings and divorce and death.
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
You know, the heavy things in life.
Right. Okay.
No, but one of the things I thought, but you mentioned that, one of the things I remember seeing, like, the cast was really good. There was a lot of, you could tell they went off script, and each night, it felt like a true live performance. They would interact with people standing up.
Very interactive. They said
cool.
Nashville. They were like, "What up, Nashville? Nashville, we're gonna do this tonight." So there was a very, like, the fourth wall was gone completely.
It felt like a concert.
A concert or a cabaret performance, that sort of thing. 11 women in the cast, and these were, if you want to take a screenshot, these were the women that performed the night that we saw it, and 2 of them were not the same performers that were printed in here, and everyone was talented. Like, you would never know that there were any substitutes or fill-ins. Everyone, plus there were 4 female musicians on stage as the band.
I like that.
Who were also insanely talented.
Yeah, I like that.
And there were nods to a lot of different types of music, going back to the music too. I mean, there was like party EDM kind of vibe. Yeah. There was soulful R&B. There was
ballads.
There was like a lot of like almost boy band, girl band vibes. So the cast killed it. Yeah. And a lot of them, it's their first touring production. So I don't know if this is the like first touring production ever of 6, but this is a lot of their first production, and they killed it.
Yeah. And I know, speaking honestly, as a guy, but really as Otto, I can say some pretty insensitive things and be chauvinistic. I really don't mean to. But honestly, having an all-female band reminded me of when Prince had his band. It was all-female. And it wasn't like Prince picked them because they were females. They were the best musicians. Because Prince is like a musical freak. I feel like these I did not know. Not that it matters, but I love that they didn't make a big deal out of them being all women. Is till the end. Like, the whole cast, not just the 6 vocalists. But the instrumentalist, the keyboard player, guitar player, drummer, bass player, were all female, so I thought that was important.
Now, you did say you didn't relate to it because you were male.
I did say that, and I think there were elements of it that were, and we talked about this, like, even...
you can keep talking. I'm just showing the lovely queens while you're talking. The 6 queens.
So as I talk about my chauvinistic stuff, show the queens. So, it's like, we talk about like with black, you see a black, like color purple. If you're a white male, there may be some things that men don't necessarily relate to. Or we talked about even immigrants who get the job done. I'm not an immigrant. Sometimes I feel like... You're
taking my examples.
I'm sorry, baby.
I said I thought you were wrong in saying that you couldn't relate to it, because that would be like me saying because I'm white I can't appreciate the color purple, and I feel like that is a disservice to the creators and the writers of the Player musical.
I think in the moment,
I think that just because you're a man doesn't mean you can't relate to this. Now, was there a lot of like girl power?
There was a lot of girl power. For sure. Well, like, that's a perfect example. Okay, this is what I mean by this.
Okay. You're gonna try to redeem yourself?
No, I'm just gonna tell the truth. Like, I was never a big fan of Spice Girls. I did not really. I know it's a shock, but I respected them. But in that era, I wasn't as much a fan of them as maybe Backstreet or New Kids on the Block or New Edition. You know what I'm saying? Or I wasn't, I respected and I loved Destiny's Child, but I gravitated towards Jodeci.
Okay. And I'm just going to say, as a woman, like, it took me on all the emotions. Like, what I loved is that it started out being very, like, it literally, like, the premise was this is going to be a competition of who had the hardest life. And, like, they each had their own song to prove why they were why they should win the competition of being like the hardest, having the hardest life. And at the end, not to spoiler alert, but it's like, hey, we're more than just the wives. We can rewrite our story. Like, we can't change history, but we can rewrite our story.
Right.
So that was where the empowerment came in. And I thought, like I said, I just thought it was entertaining and fun. And I think because of it, much like a Hamilton, people are going to study history in a new way, are going to look into the fashion, going to look into the stories, look into genealogy. Like, I think it's going to spur on more conversation, which is what good art does, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Even something you said while we were filming this, I didn't even know that there was like a musical voice that was attributed to the original 6 wives. I think that's brilliant. I wonder if they read who these women were and they felt like their musical spirit animal.
Yeah. That's what I think they tried to do. They each had their own like personality and flair and style,
Yeah.
and so.
So if one was a little bit more left of center, oh, that's a Sia.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's
so I
cool.
think that was cool. So, all that
That's
to say.
actually brilliant. That's actually really brilliant.
I know. Trying to say that. This is just, it was a good show. I think I like when things aren't status quo. This was not, okay, so if you compare it, it can be compared to a Hamilton, and that it's taking a spin on a very historical period. It is very unlike a Hamilton in that it is a very pared down cast, very pared down set. Like I said, probably 90-ish minutes, a little less, no intermission, just like literally in one time when they kind of had that realization of like, oh, we don't have to just, why are we fighting each other? Let's join forces.
Is it a spoiler?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, maybe. But they're like, we've been doing this for an hour, and then we're all like, we all looked at our watches like, oh my gosh, it's been an hour. Like, no time had gone by. So, again, is it like a 10 like Hamilton is? Like, no. But it has those elements. I already compared it to Mamma Mia in terms of the vibe. Is it a Wicked? Like, is it something I'm going to want to see over and over again? I don't know. I definitely want to see it again because there were so many references I didn't pick up. Because it was a like 6-woman show, I would have liked to have sat closer. We were up in the tier, and this was one of those shows where I felt like, because there were a lot of innuendos, both verbally and facially and physically, I would have liked to have been closer. I compared it almost to when we saw Pentatonics, when I was like, how are 5 people going to like command a room? Now they commanded an arena, which was impressive, but they did it, and that was how this was. There was movement, there was some lighting, but it was really good. Now compared to Oklahoma, that was like a -5, that was also like a one set play with just like, you have to have the voices to carry that off, and all of these women had the voices to pull off. Like, even if they had just stood and not danced around, but the dancing was good. Like, they were good. The movement, I just thought it was well thought through. It was well choreographed. The outfits were amazing. So that's kind of, I say all that too because, again, kind of side note, we just got announced they just announced the 2023-24 TPAC schedule, Tennessee Performing Arts Center here in Nashville, Wicked. And Wicked is coming back, which is like my favorite of all time. So if
I've never seen it. I know.
Well, that's not my favorite of all time. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers is my favorite of all time, but there's his historical
my favorite
sentimentality too.
I love the Music Man.
And the Music Man, yes. So if that gives you an idea that Wicked is like, I think in terms of like clever, great music, so all those things, like that's my scale of like a 10 out of 10. And I said this is like a good, I would have given this an 8.5 just onto entertainment value alone. Okay, we're now at 14 minutes.
I'll flip a script on you when I interview you. Do you think if somebody goes, you think it's worth?
This is the Sami Cone Show.
That is the Sami Cone Show, but I'm gonna just flip it up. I'll price it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be advantageous for people to listen to the musical before going in? The music,
yeah.
Going in so that you're kind of prepped. Because I feel like now that I know it and I know what I'm going into, as we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, I'll probably be looking for those little Easter eggs, if you will.
I think that's a good point, because that is one thing I would like to go through and listen to and look at the lyrics, which I don't always do that with musicals. I kind of figured out myself. I only had a chance to listen to the very first opening number, and I found myself, one, it kind of prepped me for what I was about to see, and two, when that proverbial downbeat happened, I was like, oh yeah, I know it's coming. It got me excited. So I feel like it may have primed me a little more just to have more of a context. Again, because if you miss something, if you don't know, oh, she's from Germany, or she's like, those are some of the
You're
things.
playing catch up. They go so quick.
Yeah, it is so quick, and it is hard to hear and listen. Not hard to hear, but hard to catch. Like the Anna of Cleves, that's German. There's a lot of those like, yeah, nein, das good, like things that I caught in just when I was listening on iTunes, versus it's hard to pick up in the production if you're not like right there tuned in, have heard it before. So I think it's a good point.
Yeah, it was actually, thank you.
Well done.
See, we agreed on something. Because I think once you hear it now, know what the story is, I think it could be better.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so all that to say, go see it at TPAC this week, or wherever it's coming, whenever you watch this, to your town or neighboring town. It is, like I said, well worth the price of admission. 6 the musical. Here we go. And we're out. Enjoy. Make sure you check out other honest reviews that we've given, and let us know if you agree or disagree. But kind. Always be kind, because just like we said, art spurs discussion, but even when we don't agree, we can be kind. Okay. Enjoy.